and welcome to Old Ways Gardening and Prepping. My name is Teresa. I'd like to welcome you each on an adventure on this rainy day. We're heading to the Lichterman Nature Center for the Birds and Seeds event. I'm going to try to video some of the workshops, some of the great seed haul, and looking forward to seeing what I can manage to get. I know there's going to be a plant sale and several other things. So let's get ready. This might be a long video, but we're going to have some fun. I'll see y'all there. Well, we were greeted with 3 trees first thing. And we grabbed us a Kentucky coffee tree. There's a black tupelo I'd like to have. But, yep, what is this one? See, what is this one? Sorry, y'all. Let's see. An elm tree. That would be nice to have. That would be real nice to have. We might come back for that one. That's the one that the mushrooms grow under. All right, we're heading into Lichterman Nature Center. Hi. Thank you. We are inside. All right, I got to sign in. Okay, Kenyon's done grabbed the tree. He's got the tree. Now we're going to go in here and see what all we can find. Let's see what they have.
Cookies, fruit, water down there, help yourself.
Oh, I'd love a banana. What do you want, baby? I'm going to grab a banana. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Do you want one? I got my banana in my pocket. Well, crap, I can't put it in there. All right, now it's going to get loud. Let's see. Looking for seeds.
You want me to put it in the bag? Thank you.
No, not going to the botanic garden table. There we go, seeds. Here we go. Getting some wild indigo.
Here's a list if you want to look at what we have. Here's a list of what we have. Here's a list of no, go ahead and look now what you want. Here's a list too.
There's 2 copies of it.
Okay.
She didn't do that.
Thank you. I got my wild indigo. And I'm fixing to get some cobra fruit.
So way after you've been using.
Do you have the beauty berry? Let me get this first.
The beauty berry right here. Oops. I had handed it to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
right in front of it.
Okay. Who is this right here?
Hey, how are you?
Thank you.
Who is this?
This is Lichterman
Oh, this is
Nature
Lichterman.
Seeds.
This is okay.
So if you want any native seeds, ask Richard how to do it.
All right, digging in the seeds.
What about the peppermint? Oh, that should be. I've never grown it from seed, but I'm sure it's
Ooh, green velvet okra.
Take it this way because it's hard to see it.
That's the French tarragon. It's French. That's the French red. Yeah. You know, it's hard to grow here. Yeah. Okay. Hello. Hi, how are you? This is the Support Society. And this is our next program. This is really great. Growing in pots in our area. Really good. And here's our schedule. And if you want to sign up, there's the membership form. If you want to be on the mailing list, you can do that. And you can have chocolate. Oh, yeah.
All right, I got a big old handful so far. Slowly but surely working my way around.
Here's your.
All right, we're gonna walk around some more. I've snagged some pretty good seeds.
How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
No good today.
How you doing?
How's everything?
I'm above ground still.
Still doing the videos.
Oh yeah. Yep, doing one now.
That's good. I guess you already know that Cooper Young is a level 3 arboretum.
Yeah, I heard about that.
There's a map right there if you want to see where they're all at, and they're all marked.
All the way up to Mayan County. Wow, that's fabulous.
That'd be a good video.
Yeah, it'd be a good walk around video. Yeah.
And I guess you've already signed up for it.
No,
You should. And everybody says, "Oh,
I'm not into the poo-poo stuff.
you're not into what?"
The poo-poo gardens where everybody just wants all these plants. It's perfect.
They got everything.
That's what this lady was saying. Bartlett has sent her a notice saying that she had to cut her yard back to so many inches of all native plants. Her neighbors were saying nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll look into that. I might show up.
Yeah, I hope you will.
Get you right to the website so you can all information.
People would love to see what you got.
I wouldn't mind being a vendor.
Well, then do it.
It depends on how much.
You give me your name and number.
Yeah.
Right in here on the bottom right, I want to be a vendor. But Cooper Young has vendors.
And meet the people.
I would love one.
Have a good attitude. Look at their hat.
I get ones that are UV rated. I know what I'm doing. I don't look this anywhere.
Good morning.
Do you have a tree at your house?
I've got plenty.
Is that something you are taking care of after out on such a rainy day? Do you need any glasses? Thank you.
Let's see. How much are they?
The long sleeve are 20 and the short sleeve is 15.
Okay. Can you take plastic?
Yes.
Okay.
Mary Schmidt is starting her beginner birding talk right now, right near a room right where you came in. It's a great talk if you're
Got my shirt.
So, unless you want to need a license.
I mean, if you've got natives, then yes.
Gonna get some more seeds. All right, let's go in here and look. Have you got any seeds? We're gonna go look for some more seeds. More seeds. Children's activities. I got me a shirt finally. All right, we'll come back over here. Let's go over here. I'll come back. Are the gourds up for grab?
Yeah, would you like one?
I would absolutely love one.
Please take one. Or any,
Yep. Thank you. I got a gourd for seed, y'all.
Gourds are fun. Do you grow them?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just restocking my seed supply. Okay, now, I know that was wild and hectic. Let's go back around and see what I missed. I don't know where Junior's at. Going back into the madhouse for round 2. Hello. Doing good. I'll take a pen. Pens are always good.
a tea? Would you like to?
Okay. Not going to the botanic garden table. Let's see.
We love it. So we have a contact person your skin, your hair, and we make hot chocolate. Gee, God, man, you heard of a hot chocolate? I got it, yes. We make that out of it. And so what we do is a program called Seed to Market. So they take a crop and teach you the medicinal quality. They learn how to do a recipe, they package it, and they go to the market. So we're showing how to turn food into money. We teach at Girls in Farm. It is on Yellow and Fraser. And our classes start in February.
They don't have to roll here. You know that. They just need to come inside.
Thank you.
Stop hard. I am. You want any seeds?
Monsanto seeds. Do y'all not have any organic seeds?
No, this is all we have.
Yeah, you know that's Monsanto there.
Well, then what we have is what we have. It was donated.
Start mixed in there.
Okay, no. That's all Monsanto seeds. Memphis seed, beautiful. Doing good. How are you doing?
Big and tall, beautiful. Thank you, ma'am. If you need a bag, small bag, you're more than welcome to.
I got cloth.
Okay. All right.
Do you know where your seeds come from?
That's a great question. Well, this says from New York. It says originated in the United States.
I'll have to look them up to make sure I'm not planting Monsanto.
Yeah, there are only two. There are only two sets. There's the one of each.
Okay.
Right. So.
Grab one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Not many seeds this year. You didn't get none from the botanic garden, did you? All right, we're going to go back out here and look around. Is this?
You know, I have never tried succulents. I have a friend who loves succulents, and he just bought a house. So it'd be like a house warming.
Okay.
So, I'm excited to
The aloes, when they get too big and clumpy, you can make aloes. These things regularly off them for a couple of days on top of some soil.
Oh, nuns orchid. Is this all the plants y'all have this year?
This is all the supplements I have.
Do you have anything else for sale?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you.
You got a nice
Huh?
Let's see, we are setting
Okay, yeah, sit down. All right, I'm gonna walk over here.
Yes.
Let's go over here and look at Wild Birds Unlimited. See what they have. A little late for Santa Claus. A little late for the gingerbread man. Oh my gracious. It's an owl. Wouldn't that be considered cannibalism if I put it out and the birds ate the owl? Hmm. Ooh, it's got all kinds of good stuff. Bark butter bits, corn, peanuts, rendered beef soot, oats, calcium, dried mealworms, sunflower chips, peanuts, cranberries, and raisins. Apparently made in America. I'll be right back. Okay, y'all gonna laugh. The owl was free, so yeah, I'm taking the owl home. It might slightly be cannibalism, but yeah, gonna make it happen. Okay, can't help myself. We have decided that the elm tree is gonna go home with us. I want that black tupelo too, but ugh.
Can we get a picture of you
Sure.
taking a tree?
Me and Junior are having a great time at the seed swap. Next workshop will be seed collecting and saving. So we're going to go to that and we'll video it for everyone. So see y'all after long.
Normally we would be I would have loved to be outside walking around. That's I think super fun just to go around with your clippers, and especially this time of year when you're thinking, well, what's really still out there? There's actually tons of seeds still out there, which is actually why a little bit of what Mary was probably telling you. Why it's I don't know if she mentioned, but it's great to leave your gardens looking like this all winter, because there are seeds on every single one of these things, and the birds will eat them, most of them. So what I did was I went out yesterday when it was dry, and I just clipped a bunch of things that I would have taken you guys to go get tomorrow or today. So I don't really have a formal talk, but what I'll do is just go through each one and show you quickly how you would collect the seed from it. And then you guys can come up and clip off or collect your own seed. I've got pencils and envelopes. A lot of these we already have in the other room at our table, but not all of them. So if you want, you can just take a little bit of each one and stick it all in the same container. If you want to have them separately, I've got envelopes for that. So we'll just start on this side here. Ironweed. Anybody big fan of ironweed? It's beautiful purple. I don't have pictures, but this is more about how to ID them this time of year. How to walk around and say, oh gosh, here's some ironweed. And honestly, the reason I know a lot of these, like this ironweed, it might confuse me, except that I'm here every day and I know where the ironweed is. so I know where to look for it this time of year. But some of these, like this hibiscus, you'll know what this hibiscus pod looks like anywhere. You know, you can go to a blue park and find it. Yeah.
Are any of them medicinal, and what color is the ironweed when it blooms?
The ironweed is a deep purple. And honestly, most of our native plants have some sort of medicinal use. If I look in my favorite flower book that I like, at the very bottom of almost every description is a medicinal use. I can't condone it, or I can't tell you guys to go do it because I don't really know anything about it. But probably. The answer is probably. So bright purple. All right, so let's start with that. I'm going to grab a tray. So what we do here, what I have my volunteers do, is I might say, okay, today we're going to collect ironweed seeds. And I would clip off just a little bit here. And my seed is actually, it's like a dandelion seed. You see the fuzz right here? So almost all of these are gone, except for that one fuzz there. Okay? But when you look at this as a whole, there's actually a lot of seeds left. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of like with the dandelion, you're going to pull off that one fuzzy part, and each of these seeds looks like a dandelion seed, but really tiny. Okay? So there's quite a few seeds just on that one puffed head like that. Okay? So there's the ironweed. Next we have the hibiscus. Now this hibiscus, it's white with a red center. We have two like that here that are native. I actually don't know which one this is because the leaves, I would need the leaves to tell which one. So I'm just labeling this hibiscus species. I know it's native. So you're going to clip off one of these. These are really fun because the seeds are actually really big on here. And you can see these large balls are the seeds here.
You're round. You're round.
So a lot of seed collecting is knowing what you're looking for. Yeah, there's more in there. Knowing what you're looking for. Which is, the internet is great for that. You could just Google hibiscus seed image. It'll show you about how big, what its shape is, and that helps a lot. So there's our hibiscus. Next we're going to do, anybody know this? Oh, I can't really quiz you for all of them. Never mind. This is bergamot. These can be tricky.
Yep, I thought it was.
Sometimes you'll get one seed head and nothing comes out. Oh no, lots is coming. A lot is coming out. So I'm just tipping it over and tapping it. And these are tiny. They're about the size of pepper.
What kind
And
of
there's
bergamot?
one in each one of those little tubes.
Which kind is it?
This is bergamot. Yeah, I will at the end, I'll tell you. They're pretty much all the same. It's just this little, it's like pepper. The more I do this, the more is coming out. Okay? All right. Ooh, button bush is very fun. These are really satisfying. So I'm just going to clip off one. And I have a volunteer. You want to volunteer? Anybody? No? Sure. Yeah? Okay. So you're just going to break this apart. No, just break that whole ball apart and you'll see how many seeds are in there.
What color is that one?
Oh, sorry, the button bush has a beautiful white, it almost looks like a Dr. Seuss bloom, just an orb with white spikes coming out. So this just fell apart into all these seeds. So tell me if you can't see, you guys.
We need to get some of those.
Yeah, that's just one seed head. So that's the button bush. Oh, and the bergamot is a pale purple, like a lavender. And that is the type of bergamot you could make tea out of that.
And that's what I was curious.
Yeah. I think there are multiple species that you can make tea out of. But that's one. All right, this one is called thimble thimbleweed. It gets sort of like a white, almost like a daisy flower with a white center though. These seeds are really neat. They're fuzzy. They're like cotton. So you know they're ready when they look like, I guess, like a fluff of cotton. And they just tear apart. And you know, nature is great because what nature's doing here is using the wind to blow these little seeds everywhere with that little bit of cottony stuff on it. All right, so there's our thimbleweed. Like I said, I collected all of these yesterday. If you guys ever want to come to Lichterman and collect seeds, we'd love it. We even in the parking lot. You don't have to pay them. You just go in the parking lot. You collect tons of seeds. All right, next. This is called frostweed. This has a white bloom.
It's what?
Frostweed.
Okay.
It gets its name because the first frost of the year and the subsequent frosts after that, the water that goes up the stem will freeze and will come out in these ribbon formations, these ice ribbons. It's really beautiful, and Mary and I both get excited. We were like, happy frostweed morning at the first frost, because we'll go out, walk through our some of our garden beds, and there's these beautiful formations. So that's how it gets its name. This one, we just sort of smush. It's the way the stem cracks so that the frozen water can come out. It just has a long seam where it cracks, and then it comes out slowly as like a ribbon of ice. And I don't know why other plants don't do that. It's a frostweed cut. It's really amazing. Here's one where you're probably going to want to Google what the seed looks like. Because a lot of people will think, okay, gosh, what is the seed in here? So there's a lot of chaff in here, but the seed is actually this right there. Kind of looks like a tiny little sunflower seed. And I only know because I Googled it. Oh, wow. You see, this other stuff is just the chaff. So the seed is there. Right on the outside edge. Seed. And so, I mean, if you were to try and collect the seed, you wouldn't have to know that that's the seed. You could just plant this whole thing. Just break it apart, throw it all out in your garden. So don't freak out if you don't know exactly which part is the seed. All right. Most of these require full sun. Let me think. Full sun. This one is shade, hard shade, the thimbleweed. Full sun. You can do shade on this one, which I'll get to. They will all do great in full sun. Alright, next is, let's do this river oats back here. So this is one of the few grasses that can do shade. Can actually do well in quite a bit of shade. So the river oats, it kind of makes these chevron shapes on the seed. Actually, a really pretty seed. It's nice for arrangements too. We like to stick this in fall arrangements. But each of these will break up into its own individual seed. I had a volunteer the other day that's what she did. The whole 2 hours she was here, she wrote this. I mean, I asked her if she wanted to. She was enjoying it, so.
Therapeutic.
Yeah. And we have a lot of this if you want to get some. And like I was saying, right out in the parking lot here, there's a lot of river oats. I mean, as you're leaving.
What color are the leaves in the
Of the river oats, it's a grass, so it basically looks like a grass. And
Just green.
Just green. And these little, the little things that hang down that will turn into the seeds, they're just green.
Okay.
Until they're brown and they're ready to collect. Yes.
How readily will those river oats like spread in your yard?
So some of my volunteers, they go, ooh, river oats, because
they're gorgeous.
I love them.
Yeah, I would want to know where to put them so that they wouldn't just take over if that's something that they do.
I think if you had perfect conditions, they're
They do it.
They're on the line of maybe taking over, but I like things that take over. I like native things that take over.
Yeah.
Because I'm always trying to get rid of my non-native things. But yeah, if you have the right amount of sun shade, probably 50%, they would do very well. And they're called river oaks because they can handle wet. Like a place where it maybe floods sometimes, or you get wet spots in your yard. These would do really well there.
Now, is it a grain that's edible?
What's that?
Is it a grain that's edible?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so. These will get maybe 3 feet, 2.5 feet. Okay, this is one of my favorites. It's called Rattlesnake Master.
Rattlesnake
It's very
master.
cool. My parents live in North Dakota, and they have rattlesnake master too. I like these plants that can just take up such a huge amount of the map. You know, they do well. They're native all the way from Canada down here, which is amazing when you think of the difference between our climate. But these you just break up the seed head, and each seed head has a ton of seeds on it. This again is one, if you wanted to know this, what is the seed and what is the chaff, you would probably have to Google it. Rattlesnake Master is one of the few plants that they say that it blooms green. It's one of the very few green blooms. So it's kind of like an arid type plant. They like dry. It's almost like a yucca. It's closely related to that. So they have these sort of pale green leaves and these stalks, and then those crazy seed heads. That's pretty much what it looks like. Only they're greenish white, and they look amazing in a flower bed. You've got all different. I like different textures in my flower bed, and it really adds a lot. So, and the bees love it. So this is Rattlesnake Master. And we have 2 left here. This one is our St. John's wort, which is medicinal. I can't say that. Confidence. I'm not telling you to eat it, though. So these are fun. Those are the little seed heads.
And they're gorgeous.
They are gorgeous, bright yellow. And they're kind of semi-evergreen. The foliage on them will stay. This is the seed head. So the seed is inside. So St. John's wort has one of these seeds that's tiny. So what you're going to do is you can actually try and open up this little seed head. If I just were to tip it over, seeds would start coming out. But if you want to get the most seed out of it, you're going to open it up. You'll get a chance to do this if you want. You can try all these. And it just pours out. It's actually not as tiny as I was remembering. But it's small. So each of these little seed heads has quite a bit of seed in it. All right. And last but not least, it's one of my favorites, dog hobble. I have a volunteer here, and he was like, "What's that one?" I said, "Dog hobble," and he just started laughing. He's like, "Some of these names for these plants, I know." This one is great. If you come up here, you'll see that some of these are open already. Actually, I'm going to walk that around for you guys to see. This is dog hobble, and you'll see that some of these seed heads are open. You see they're a little paler, and they're opened up. And these are not opened yet. These still have seeds, whereas these have already dropped their seeds. It's kind of a subtle difference, but the more you're kind of out in nature and you're looking at these things, you'll notice these things. That's open, and this one is not open yet. So we are going to, I cut both so that you can see the difference. And it's the kind of thing where you may still get a few seeds in this one that has opened. Let me see if I can get any out of there. But I think it's already tapped out. But now the one that hasn't opened quite yet, I'm just See that there? I'm just tapping it. And you could probably crush it to get more seed out of there.
Does that one grow in the shade?
There's that tiny seed. The dog hobble will grow in part shade. And it's an evergreen. We actually have some out in the bed right up in front here, kind of on the edges. Yeah, there's still green leaves on the cuttings that I took. So it's a nice option if you're looking for something evergreen that's native. Show you guys these seeds that are coming out. These little ones. But nothing came out of the ones that were already open. Sorry, sneak out behind this. That's the seed there. Okay, and that is, I think I hit all the plants that are up here. And if you guys would like to come on up, we got clippers. I have these if you want to take some of the that I already got, or if you want to try your own. This is what I would have made you do outside. Just cut your own, and then try and harvest your own. So, and I'll just be here to help you if you want. If you have any more questions. All right, I'm gonna grab some of these little envelopes, and then I'll leave the on the plate up there, so I'll put up room. Just any envelopes you want.
She's got the envelope.
Yeah,
Junior getting all up there.
I should have brought more little clippers over.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you. You all are great
Want some seeds?
We love your print.
Yeah, isn't this a great
Do
room?
you want to collect some seeds?
You can put them in a little envelope, bring them home. You know, I forgot to tell you guys, all of these seeds, someone had asked, and I said I would tell you. All of these seeds can be tossed out right now because this is the time of year that they're dropping their seeds. In nature, they would fall on the ground right now. They would go through the winter and they'd come up in spring. So any kind of clear areas, any beds you want to just toss them into. That's the easiest way to do it.
Okay. What would you like?
You know, he should try the button bush. It is really fun. Let's see. I'll show you the button bush here. Swish that. See all the seeds that fall out of there.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, each one of these is a seed.
The flowers.
Made out of this. The flowers made out of this.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly. So then
Yes.
so let's see here. And you put your leaves yes, she's under control. Yep. And oh.
You know what I have? I have a cute little pill bottle that we can use.
Okay, we're gonna get one more for that button.
button
The
push.
first one, the button push.
Can I show you another? Alright, I gotta show you this next. Is this what? That looks like the product. It actually is. Yeah, that's the seed. Each tube had one seed in it. I'm gonna take pictures of by the days. They are. Oh. This is really tropical looking. This hibiscus. Yeah. White. Yeah, it's white with a pink center. Oh, so very exciting. Yeah. Kind of special. Want to get those in there?
Okay, I got my St. John's wort and my rattlesnake master. I don't know what all Junior's after.
Yes. Yes. Well, we love that.
Oh, it's hard to see it. You don't see like a.
It's stuck in that corner.
Tell all your friends.
Yes.
Plant seeds.
Okay, I need you.
Okay.
Alright, me and Junior are escaping for a little while. Gonna get to walk a little bit. It's raining, so we don't know how long we're gonna stick it out, but we're gonna try. I hear a woodpecker. Go down here. Yep, where is that woodpecker? I hear it. There it goes. Up there in a tree. There it is. There it goes. Alright, let's zoom back out. Go down here and see what we can see. I know there's usually, watch out, don't slip on those. I know there's usually geese and great blue herons down here. Figure I'd change the video up a little bit. Take y'all on a nature walk. Y'all just have to pause the video so you can read it. I don't know how long we're going to get to stay out here. Rain's starting to come back down pretty good. I know back in the day, when I was way younger, they used to have beavers out here. Ooh, it's done. Temperature done dropped big time. I think the geese said, nope, we're done. Junior about jumped backward trying to stay out of the camera. And there just ain't enough supports under this bridge for my liking. There's another real long walkway over there. I'm not too sure about that red one. walk a little further. Ooh, don't like bridges. Hopefully the wind's not too bad on the camera. Yeah, probably gonna have to walk back here soon because Junior's gonna get cold. I see they lost a big oak. Big old pretty oak. I see things are starting to come up for spring. I know what Junior's looking for. Junior's looking for oozneal. I know what he's doing. Aren't you, baby? Yep. That tree's been down for a while, so yeah, I'm slipping on this slick wood in these boots. And see, I got my waterproof snake boots on, but on wet wood, they are slippery. Concrete, they're fine. Alright, I think we're gonna head back because I don't want to keep Junior out in the rain and the cold for long. Well, so far we've done pretty good. We got an elm tree and a Kentucky coffee tree, which I'll go into further talk about that later on. I missed out on the tulip poplar, but I can always get more of those. But yep, it's a beautiful thing to have this nature preserve smack in the city. Have had a blast. Of course, I'll do a second video on all the seeds we have scored. There wasn't as many seeds being gave away this time. And there's the backside of the main building of Lichterman Nature Center. All kinds of different buildings. I'll have to bring y'all back out on a nice sunny day. Looks like they have a little amphitheater they're working on. There's a nice big building over there. Don't know which one that was. And then they got another one over there. Also know they have a greenhouse, and man, that's hickory nuts. Man, I missed out on some hickory nuts. Sure did. There's the greenhouse way over there, picnic tables, and so on. Let Junior walk by. And there's the site map for Lichterman Nature Center. They have a whole lot of different things you can do here. Alright, it's time for me to head in. It's getting a little brisk.
So we don't want to keep anybody up. So what I gave you is a checklist of the birds of Tennessee. Now, some of those birds are really rare. Some of them you're only going to see in East Tennessee. But it basically takes a list of 10,000 birds out there in the world down to what you really have the possibility of seeing. There's about 400 birds in Tennessee. Okay? So, everybody gets attracted to birds for different reasons. Sometimes it's challenging, sometimes it's just, I know some folks that got involved with birding during the pandemic just because it was what was right outside their window. So people have different ways that kind of bring them to birds, but it can definitely, this is our next birding event too, which is the Great Backyard Bird Count, Saturday, February 17th. When you counting birds from 11 to 2. It's a national program, and it'll be going on that entire weekend. You can do it in your backyard, but we're doing kind of a guided one on Saturday, February 17th. But one of the things about birds is just this sheer diversity of birds can be really overwhelming. And so what I'm going to try to do today is give you sort of the process to get from these 10,000 birds down to that one that you're looking at. This bird here is pretty cool. This is an American white pelican. This is the largest bird we get in Tennessee. About a 9-foot wingspan, and they can weigh, I think, about 25 pounds. So really large for a bird. The checklist that I gave you guys, I start one of these every year in our yard. January 1st, we start seeing what birds we see in our yard every year. And the reason I did it was because years ago I wrote an article for a Tennessee conservationist, and I was like, how many birds have I seen in my backyard? And so I estimated around 50. That was a little low because from then on we started really keeping track, and we've never been below 65. So this last year we had 69. Our highest year has been 72. And then some of the birds that we've seen include pelican. We saw flyover of pelicans. We saw a bald eagle. Was in here. Yeah. So American white pelicans migrate through the area. And I don't have like a big farm and a lot of property. I live just like 5 streets away from here. I can walk here if I need to, and so I just live in a regular neighborhood. But what I tell people is the more you start looking and the more you pay attention, and then you can do some things to attract more to your yard, but you can get a really nice diversity of birds. I saw American white pelicans flying over during migration one time. And you can really tell the American white pelicans too because they have black tips on their wings and a massive wingspan, like I said. So what we're going to talk about today is how to get to that one bird that you happen to be looking at. And so we'll start with the basics, but there actually is like a method on how to identify birds. And it starts with looking at the size. Then we're going to look at the shape, silhouette, color, and habitat. And people are like, I know nothing about birds, I don't know any birds. What I find is everybody knows some birds, right? What's this one? Cardinal. Yeah, cardinal.
That's my favorite.
Awesome. Before you leave, I have this really cool book I've been looking through, and it's about the folklore of birds, and a cardinal's in here. It has some pretty interesting folklore stuff. Speaking of that, this blue jay, there is a folklore about the blue jay that a sparrow put a yoke around him and made him plow a field, and that's why he has this mark right here. I don't know where that came from, but bald eagle, our national symbol, not really bald, just has a white head. It takes him 5 years to get that white head. So from year 1 to year 4, they go through a different molt, but they don't look like this until they're at least 5 years old. So you can age them, but one of the reasons that eagles decline so rapidly
was because it took 5 years to start breeding. And so if you wipe out, 1 or 2 years, you have another 5, 6, 7, 8 years until you get a population back. That being said, bald eagles are no longer endangered, right? They're off the endangered species list, which is awesome. There are some reports that suggest we even have more bald eagles now than we did historically, and that's because of the reservoirs, man-made lakes, things like that. We've provided more habitat for them. Not necessarily on purpose, and then of course they have protection. So they are actually protected, even though they're not endangered anymore. They are protected by a law that was passed in the 1940 Bald and Golden Eagle Act, which still protects them. So they still do have some protection. I've seen bald eagles here twice. And I got them over my house because I was here, and I guess I don't live very far. And I saw one, it was flying towards our house. So I called my husband, and I was like, "Oh, outside, there's a bald eagle." And he did. He saw it from our house, so we got to count it. Ruby-throated hummingbird, right? Here in east of the Rockies, 95% of the time when you see a hummingbird, it is a ruby-throated hummingbird. It's the only one that's really in the eastern United States. This time of year, though, is when we can get some weird ones that have been blown off track. So if you do see any hummingbird from the end of October until like March, it's usually a weird one that showed up. And please call me because there's an organization that actually goes out and bans all these weird hummingbirds that show up in the wintertime. This one is one of my favorite birds.
Crow.
Yeah, it's a crow, right? We actually get 2 different types of crows here, so we'll talk about the difference between the two. But really intelligent birds too. Corvids, which are crows, jays, magpies, ravens, smartest birds out there. Can use tools. They can speak. They can have a larger vocabulary than like parrots. They just don't have as nice of a voice as say a parrot. This robin, American robin. Right now they're getting in really big flocks. You might be seeing them. The robins that we're seeing now are not the same ones that we saw in the summertime. Robins are short distance migrators, so they might only be going 60 or 100 miles south, but they're moving, and so we're probably getting ones that are from like northern Kentucky or southern Illinois right now. Wild turkey? Somebody called me the other day in a neighborhood, it's still in Shelby County, I can't quite remember where it is, but they had turkeys in their neighborhood, which is kind of cool. But when I talk about turkeys and bald eagles and talking about what bird should have been our national symbol, because there is a rumor or folklore that Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our national symbol. He sort of did. He wrote a letter to somebody that mentioned the bad moral character of the bald eagle. And the reason is bald eagles will steal fish from smaller birds. So they'll go after gulls and sometimes ospreys until they drop the fish, and then they'll go get it themselves. So he thought that the turkey had a much better moral value than the bald eagle. So, and having worked with both of them in captivity, I definitely agree. I would much rather work with the bald eagle instead of the turkeys when they're in their breeding season. You can't turn your back on them. They'll be right on top of you. So they're pretty brave. So this is actually a vulture. This is our turkey vulture. So some people call them buzzards, but that's actually a different group of birds in Europe. But turkey vultures, they don't have a lot of feathers on their head because of where they're sticking their head. So that's why when you see them outside sunning, they're doing that nasty stuff flaking off their heads.
They are endangered.
Those are condors, which are related. But they're out west a little bit bigger. So the vultures here, we get 2 different types, and they are not endangered.
Used to get them at international paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All outside.
Oh, yeah. Because, they like to nest on, like, ledges and cliffs and stuff. So sometimes they'll nest on building ledges, stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. So European starling, this bird was actually introduced. It's an introduced species. It's native to Europe. It was introduced on purpose to Central Park. There was an organization, a Shakespeare Club, that wanted this was before we had a lot of wildlife loss, but they wanted to introduce every bird that was in a Shakespeare play. So starlings in a Shakespeare play. First time they did it, it didn't work. So they did it again, and it worked this time. It took them just only 25 years to get to like the Midwest, and within 50 years they were found coast to coast. So definitely took the second time, but always in association with people. And then here we have our eastern bluebird. These guys are year-round here, and if we put up nest boxes and they utilize them during the breeding season, they will sometimes come back and use them in the wintertime, especially during our last storm. They'll be going inside and to stay warm. So I've seen them go into our purple martin gourds in the wintertime when they're still up, and then also into other boxes. Okay, so everybody kind of knows at least like a dozen birds, right? But what happens when, and you may know this bird, yeah. Cool. So, you might come across birds that you're not familiar with. And so, how would you describe it? If you called me and you wanted to know what bird this was, how would you describe it? Yeah, right? That makes sense. What about this one? Yeah. I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you in just a minute.
This is like the fast forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you were just using color as an identification thing, you would describe these two birds to me almost identical. But they're very different. But color isn't always reliable. So these two birds, American goldfinch, this one you find around here. Hi guys, come on in.
Hey.
Oh, you're totally fine. So this one here is an American goldfinch, and this one an evening grosbeak. One of the reasons color isn't going to be working very well for this is because sometimes American goldfinches look like this. Sometimes they look like this. And then grosbeaks, that's the male grosbeak, but this is what the female grosbeak looks like. So describing those with color sometimes isn't the best way to do that. And yeah.
Is there a red grosbeak that has black and red?
So
Yes.
grosbeaks, there's the rose-breasted grosbeak, and it has so awesome.
They were
So,
so great.
yeah.
We were thrilled. That was the first time was last summer, but I was just curious.
No, that's awesome, and I use them when I teach a class to scouts, and I use that as an example because I see them every year, but they're not residents here. We only see them during migration, which is really cool. So I see them usually in the spring and in the fall during migration. And once you see those males with the red chest, there's no turning back to getting into birding. So yeah, so color isn't always going to be reliable. So birds can go through seasonal changes. This is, might not be the same individual, but this is the same species of bird. This is it in the spring and summertime, and this is it in the fall. And so this is chestnut-sided warbler. But in the fall, most birds lose a lot of their coloration. They're not attracting mates, which is the main purpose for that really colorful display. And so they want to be more camouflage and not stick out as much for predation, things like that. So seasonal changes, spring and fall months, when they're in breeding or non-breeding season. It's one of my favorites. This is a summer tanager, but this is a first-year male, and only first-year males do this. The females are this kind of yellowish color, and the males are this reddish color. But it's so interesting, in the first-year males, they get varying degrees of red. And every individual first-year male is different how much red they have. I've seen them so many different amounts of red, but it's one of the coolest birds to see because it's only that first year that they do that, where they have the red and the yellow. And when I see those first year males, I get really excited to see them with both colors. Age can also be a factor. So like bald eagles, it takes them 5 years to get to an adult with that white head. Gulls are kind of the same way. Gulls, sometimes it takes them almost 5 years to go through different molts. And then there can also be individual differences. Oh, I'm sorry, this is what the male will look like the following year. So that guy becomes that. So summer tanager, we get those around here. If you see that bird, but he's got black wings, it's a scarlet tanager. Anybody know this bird? Yeah, it's actually a robin. Okay, so robins, all birds can do this, but I see it most in robins. They can get something, it's not a true albino, so true albinos have no color, or they're missing color, and they'll have red eyes. But some of the birds just are lacking color, and we call it leucistic. And so you can see a little bit of the red breast of the robin, okay? And after we talk about this process of identifying birds, you should be able to look at this and see the shape of the robin. And that's how we start to identify birds, because color isn't always reliable. And lighting. If we go birding when it's really dreary and gray out, you might be looking at a bird and get no color at all. So color isn't always reliable, but I will show you one bird where it definitely is reliable. So what I'm going to teach is the Peterson method. So Roger Tory Peterson was basically the father of modern ornithology or birding, and he really put together the first useful field guide for birds. And what he did was he did a system. And so he looked at the size, the shape, or the taxonomy, or like what group of birds does it belong to? Is it a sparrow or is it a duck? And then he looked at behavior, and then finally those little field marks that you can see outside. And the reason that this was really important and such a change in ornithology, because it used to be that people identified birds by what's called bird in hand. So I keep forgetting, I'm gonna remember next year to bring it. But do you guys ever see like some Audubon prints? If you look, next time you see like an Audubon print, look at the way the birds are posed, because it's not natural. Like sometimes their wings are like off and their neck is a weird way. And the reason is Audubon shot the birds and then posed them to paint them. So that's why they're like in weird positions. Because at that time, before the development of optics, the way you identify birds was shooting them and then identifying them with your hand. And so one example is, this bird right here is called a red-bellied woodpecker. Do you see any red on his belly? But if you had it in your hand, which I do not recommend with woodpeckers, and you blew on his belly, there are red feathers underneath. So that's how he got that common name, because they identified him while they were holding him in their hand. It is not the only way of identification. It's the way that I think works best for most people, but people learn in different ways. And so this is another way. This is a fairly new. When did this come out? I can't remember how often this or when this came out, but this is the Crosley guide, and this one does something a little bit different. What he did is he took thousands and thousands of photographs of birds at different angles and different distances, and then he imposed them on the correct habitat. So it's supposed to be like identifying it by knowing what's in that habitat sort of way. So it's a little bit different than what we're talking about. I love these guides though. I use this at home. This is like usually what I flip through if I'm just looking at birds or just like, oh, what's this bird or something like that. So this is really good. I love the raptor one that he has, which is hawks, eagles, and owls, because the first couple pages, he doesn't identify the birds. He just has like a number next to him, and then you can practice on like if you can identify those birds. So I kind of like that. I think actually in his introduction, it's in his book, he might say like, this isn't a book you take out in the field, this is a book you like have a glass of wine with, you know, or something like that. I think he says that in his book. So a little bit of a different way, but we're going to talk about the Peterson method. I add in location and habitat because that can really narrow down your birds, and then also the time of year. Because there are birds that we get here now that we will not see in the summertime. They're breeding up in the boreal forest in Canada. So habitat is basically where you're finding a bird. So is it a wetland, a lake, an old growth forest, stuff like that? Is it urban? And so like this bird is a ring-necked duck. We've had them here at the lake before, but it's not a bird you're going to see in the forest. Knowing what's in your area can be really important too. This is an oriole. It looks sort of like a Baltimore oriole, but it's not, because this is actually called a Bullock's oriole, and it's only a western species. So this is actually the oriole that we get here. It can look really similar but different locations. This is a Baltimore oriole. We actually get two different types of orioles here, Baltimore and orchard orioles. And then time of year. This bird is a dark-eyed junco, only here in the wintertime. I was in Alaska years and years ago in May, and I was like, what's all that sound coming over there? And sure enough, it was dark-eyed juncos, which I'd only seen in the wintertime, living in the lower 48, but it was really neat to see them on their breeding grounds too. So size. So this is really where these two birds, where we're going to differentiate these birds. So instead of saying like 6 inches or 9 inches, that's really hard to estimate sometimes when you're looking at a bird from like 30 feet away. But what this system does is it looks at 3 common birds that just about everybody knows. The house sparrow, any sparrow, American robin, and American crow. So when we're talking about birds, if you were identifying one of these 2 birds and you called me, you would say, this bird is about a sparrow size. This bird is actually more close to a robin size. And so just that characteristic, it could told me that, it can tell you which of the two birds you were looking at. And so that's where those guys fit in. So a lot of times when you're looking at birds, is the size will really differentiate that. And then but using the sparrow, robin, crow, you'll see that in a lot of references to in identification. Silhouettes. So looking at these silhouettes, can you pick out at least the group of birds that these belong to? So that's kind of, yeah, exactly. But if you just know that that's a duck, you've taken like this guide of all of these birds that you could possibly see, and you know that you're only going to be looking like in this section right here, because that's where the ducks are. So that even though it seems pretty obvious, the silhouette is one of the first things that should help pinpoint what part of your field guide you're going to look at. So have here, this is a cardinal. Now some people were like, it's a blue jay, stuff like that. And you could still say this. You could even just say this is a perching songbird, right, that has a crest. And that narrows it down to just about 3 birds in this area. Woodpecker, okay, that's only 6 that we get around here. I think 6. Ducks, sparrow. This is a great blue heron. A lot of people want to call these cranes. Cranes, we can get sandhill cranes from. This one is not an egret, but this one is. This one. Oh no, that's a night heron. I don't have an egret on here. So egrets and herons can look very similar. We get 4 types of egrets around here in the summertime, and they will have a similar silhouette to this, but not the S-shaped neck like the great blue heron. And then this is a group of birds called night herons, and they always have like these stocky necks and really big bills. In Peterson's field guides, he has this silhouette kind of quiz, which I have tried to find just a printed copy of it to hand out to people. But this will really help you learning your silhouettes, is just taking a look at this and saying, what is 22, and then it'll identify it for you. So that's great for silhouettes. Beak shape, I don't know if anybody visited the bird beak buffet activity out here, but looking at a bird's beak can also help you identify what it eats, but also maybe where it lives and some of its behavior. So this bill down here, this really thick bill, hurts really bad if you're holding this bird and pinches the tip of your finger. But this is a seed-eating bill. So this big, thick bill is for cracking seeds. This is for a cardinal. This one, very different, very flat, doesn't look like it could crack a seed at all. This is to a bird called a flycatcher. Insect eater, they have a really flat bill, but they can open it really wide to catch insects. But very flat and a very almost like dainty bill, not like this one. Okay, so carnivores, birds that are eating meat always have a curved or a hooked bill. Seed eaters, ducks for filtering. This would be like a shorebird, insects, seeds, meat, and then woodpeckers too. So field marks are the specific details that we look at when we're trying to just differentiate maybe between like these 2 birds. So I usually start with the head and then work my way down the body of the bird when I'm looking at it. And so we use kind of the same terms, and almost every field guide, the first pages of the field guide will have almost this exact picture because this bird shows so many different field marks. It has the eye line, an eyebrow stripe, a crown stripe, a throat patch, and that actually is a white-throated sparrow. It's a winter bird. It is very common around here right now. A common feeder bird, often in groups. I'm going to play his sound later, and I bet you have heard his sound before too. But I always recommend to people, if there's only one bird you look at when you leave here, look at the white-throated sparrow, and just so you can see those field marks that before maybe you weren't even looking to focus on what those different field marks are. Then the other thing, once you get past the head, is looking at its wings. So these are wing bars, and this is a wing patch. So that is another little field mark or characteristic that would separate these 2. Is wing bars versus wing patches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which part is the patch on the?
On this guy right here, so see how it's not a bar, it's just like a splotch? Yeah, so that's a patch versus a bar. So what's the bird doing? Is the bird, this bird up here is called an eastern phoebe. One of its behaviors is gets on a perch, and then it flies out, grabs an insect, and then comes back to that same perch. Very characteristics of phoebes to be going out and coming back to the same perch. Is it by itself or in large groups? Snow geese love to be in these massive groups. If you just drive across the border into Arkansas on some of those flat fields, you see hundreds, thousands all over there in the wintertime. And then how does it fly? Some birds have a unique flight. Woodpeckers all go in what we call an undulating flight, or almost like a roller coaster. And so woodpeckers do that, so you can see that from a distance. And then one of the only songbirds that does it is an American goldfinch, the little bird that we saw in the previous slide. And I have a little trick to knowing that they fly that way and their sound. So somebody told me this long ago, and I still think about it. So they fly, they go up and down, tuck their wings, back up, down. And so the mnemonic, or the words we put to some of the sounds they make, is potato chip, because they kind of sound like, especially when they're flying. So one way you can remember a goldfinch when they're flying, it's potato chip, their sound, dip, potato chip, dip, because that's their flight and their flight sound. Okay? All right, so finally we'll get to color patterns. So sometimes when we're not necessarily looking at the color, but we're looking at the pattern or the concentration of color. And so, for example, this is a northern harrier that sometimes we get here in the wintertime. Shelby Farms gets them every winter, flying really low over the fields, but this white rump patch is very characteristic. Song sparrow, these guys got a color concentrated in a dot right on its chest. Sometimes color is all that you need. This is a bird around here called a painted bunting. It's not super common around here, but it is nested in Shelby County, and near Fuller State Park is where it's usually seen. Almost just about every year, but right across the border in Arkansas, you can get them as well. This is the male, and really, if you see that bird and you see its color, you don't need to know its silhouette or anything like that, because color is really all that you need for that one. This is the male. The female is kind of like an olive green color. You guys can come in if you want.
No, we passing through.
Okay.
We haven't been in this room.
Okay, so sound. When I started birding, I don't know how long ago it was, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be one of those birders that knows birds by sound. It's almost, I always take my binoculars, but I bird majority by sound, because you don't see everything. But I can tell you, I was one of those people that was like, there's never going to be that birder. I'm never going to be the one that can do the sounds. But there is a way to start learning the sounds. So what I recommend with it is that you pick out 5 common birds. And the 5 birds I usually say are a cardinal. It's definitely one of them. They sound like a bouncing ball. Like, a cardinal is one of them. Chickadee, white-throated sparrow, which I'm going to play for you, a robin, and then maybe one of the woodpeckers. Because if you learn those 5 sounds, when you're out there and you are just overwhelmed by sounds, what you can start doing is pulling those sounds out. Okay, I hear the cardinal, what else am I hearing? Okay, I hear a robin. And then you can see I don't know what this sound is, but I know it's not a cardinal, I know it's not a robin. What are my other options? That's how I recommend learning sounds. White-throated sparrow, this is a sound, I always call this sound like, when I hear it, it's like the sound of winter in the South to me. White-throated sparrows, super common, but they have a really unique high-pitched sound. I'll play that for you guys. And it sounds like they're saying, Old Sam, Peabody, Peabody, Peabody. Little variation. See how high-pitched it is? There's not a lot of other things that are really that high-pitched right now. So when you're out the next week or two outside, listen for this sound and see if you can pull it out.
I'm sorry.
No.
I heard that.
Yeah.
And I thought when I looked it up and I saw it was like a golden crown sparrow.
Oh, golden crown kinglet.
Golden something. Again, I'm not remembering the name of it, but it's what I thought it sounded.
Okay, so there is a kinglet. There's a golden crown kinglet that's also in the area right now, and they also have a high-pitched sound, but it's not like a melody like that. But let me play it for you real quick. Only take me a second. Oops. Yes, and I'm going to tell you guys. Yes, I'm going to tell you guys the best thing to download too. Golden crown kinglet. Here we go. Let's see. It's not so like songy.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was that.
It was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's unmistakable.
Yeah.
Because you hear it for the first time and you're like, what is that?
It really stands out, and that's the one, that bird this time of year, the sound, easy ones to start with.
There's another one that starts out sounding like that, but changes, and it's a rufous-sided towhee.
Oh yeah. So rufous-sided towhee. So it sounds like they're saying drink your tea. So it's like a little warble there at the end. Okay, so other sounds, chickadees, easy. They say their name. This is actually their call. Birds have 2 different sounds. They have calls and songs. Calls are like, hey, how are you? I'm over here. What's for dinner? Songs are more for attracting mates or defending territories. Most of the time, songs are more complicated, right? Because you want your best stuff out there to attract a mate. But with chickadees, it's reversed. This is actually their call, which is more complicated than their song. Their song is Phoebe, Phoebe. Very simple 4-note song. Versus their call, which is a little bit more song-like, but it's really their call, how they're communicating. Mockingbirds are state bird. They imitate sounds like their name suggests. What they typically do is stuff in series of 3. Not always, but if you hear a bird and most of the time it's doing 3 or more, it's a mockingbird. If you hear it doing mostly just imitating a sound twice, it's a bird called a ground thrasher, which is also a mimic. But mockingbirds can make a variety of sounds. So just start listening to the sounds, and if you are counting 3 at one time, sometimes that can clue you into the mockingbird. Also very loud, some of the first singers in the morning, and are around people too. So it's one, if you watch it sing, sometimes that helps as well, if you're a visual learner. So what bird is this? Now, you may know this bird, but what you do know is you know what bird this isn't, right? So you know it's not a duck, it's not a woodpecker. So even though you might not know what this is, you still know what it isn't, and that's still bringing your list way down. This bird sounds like he's saying, Peter, 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 oh, Peter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a tuft-to-titmouse, feeder bird. Yeah, I'll tell you, chickadees are some of the loudest, most vocal birds, and they're some of the smallest.
Carolina Wren. Carolina Wren.
You guys missed my first talk. I have a daughter, and her name is Wren. She acts just like a wren today. She was all over the place, and she was a little rowdy this morning. But yeah, we'll talk about wrens in just a minute too. So this is a tufted titmouse is the name of this bird. We'll talk about them a little bit more. So what do you need to get started? Really, what I tell people, you can go out, you can get your expensive scope and field guides and stuff like that. You're welcome. But what you really need is you need to learn to see detail, like we talked about, starting to see those little details in the birds that separate them out. Active study. One of the things that helped me the most, 5 years ago, I had a 2-year-old kid. He needed a break. I needed some me time. So I decided to try to bird every single day for at least 15 minutes and keep a list. I do it on an online thing, which I'll show you. But I did that every day for a year, and I became such a better birder. I thought I was pretty good before, but then doing that every day, just practicing every single day, definitely made me a better birder. And there's lots of help, especially in Shelby County. We have one of the best ornithological societies in Memphis. They are the friendliest, most helpful birders. They lead free trips. to some of the best birding spots, and they are so helpful. I know some of the birders have, on their own time taken out people and that are visiting from out of town and stuff like that. So a great group. I'm not sure if anybody's still here, but they meet once a month, except during the summertime when everyone's out birding. But they're a really great organization. There's some social media sites, but what I really recommend is the Merlin Bird ID app. It is totally free. It's through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which is the premier ornithologist school in the country. And it basically takes you through the Peterson system. You can get on that app and you see a bird and it will ask you some of those same questions. The size, it'll use those 3 sizes that we talked about. It'll ask you where you are, what time of year, what was the bird doing, was it flying, perching, swimming, and then it'll ask color, and then it'll give you a list of possibilities. Really cool thing it does though, which I love, I use it sometimes just to verify what I think, is it's sound ID. You can take this app and you can go outside and turn on the sound ID and it will list the birds that it's hearing out there. And then when it hears it, it'll light up so you know which bird that is. It's really good. It can be overwhelming, and it's not 100% accurate. The more people use it, the better it's getting. But every once in a while there's a weird one, or if you're there, sometimes here it's too loud with the traffic and it won't pick any of the birds up. So it's good to learn some of your sounds too, but this app is just, it was such a game changer to identify those sounds. So really cool app and totally sound. Observation. So this is important because there's nothing more frustrating than you're looking at a bird, you look at it, flip through your field guide, and you're like, oh, does it have a wing bar or no wing bar? Look back up, and it's gone. So one of the things I recommend is, especially when you first get started, is just watch the bird for a while before you get your field guide out. What's the bird doing? Did it sing? Watch it sing. How's it acting? Look for those field marks, stuff like that. So I always tell people you just need one of 2 senses to be a birder, either your sense of sight or your sense of hearing. I have a good friend who is blind, and he's an amazing birder, and he does it all by sound. I know people that have been birders and they've lost their hearing over time, and they can identify a bird driving 40 miles down the road. And they're like, oh, American Kestrel. So really just one of those 2. There are definitely things that are going to help and make it more enjoyable. So the first one is going to be field guides. These are going to help identify what you're seeing. I do have some recommendations on field guides. I like drawings over photographs because photographs show one individual bird at one given time, where drawings can kind of combine a lot of common characteristics and give you an overview or the general appearance of a bird. The Crosley guides, I think I talked about those before. I like to use those just in, when I'm at home. This is one thing I definitely recommend that you get, and you can download it for free. It is called The Seasonal Occurrence of Shelby County Birds. There's a wonderful woman here who has been birding here for a long time. Most of it came from a lot of her own data. Her name's Martha Waldron, she's great. But basically what it does is you can look up a bird, and it will tell you the early date that it arrives, when it's really common here or uncommon, and its late date. So if you're looking at a bird, say a Cooper's hawk, or say you think it's a sharp-shinned hawk or something, but it's June, usually sharp-shinned hawks are not here in June, so maybe it's a Cooper's hawk or something really close, but this is super helpful. Like I said, you can download it off of the Memphis, Tennessee Ornithological Society website. It's in color on there, but it's really helpful to be, just at the beginning, especially, you're like, I think it's this bird, but you look up and that bird isn't here in the wintertime. It can help you narrow it down too. So I definitely recommend one of these. And the field guide I really have liked for the last couple of years is called the Sibley Guide. You can get an Eastern or a Western. I bird when I travel, so I always get North American guides instead of Eastern guides. But it's great. It's got some really good plates in it. Overall, I like this is my favorite field guide. Because it's bigger, it can get a little bit pricey. You can find them used a bunch. Thrift Books sometimes has really good ones. The library in the main branch of the library, their bookstore, almost always has like a bird field guide somewhere. Ones I don't recommend are state guides because, I must have hit something. State guides, because birds don't know state lines, and Tennessee is so diverse from the east to the west. So I don't like those, and I don't like ones that are done by color. We talked about how color isn't always reliable. So I recommend getting, if you're gonna want a smaller one, just to get an Eastern guide or a North American guide. The only state ones I recommend are if you're going to Hawaii or Alaska, because they're so different from what we have in the 48. Patience. I used to get really frustrated when I didn't know a bird until I met a very famous birder, and he said, nobody knows every bird they see or hear. I was like, you don't? He's like written books and stuff like that. He's like, no, nobody knows every single bird they ever see or hear. So that made me feel a little bit better, but having patience that you're not going to know everything right away. The Merlin Bird ID app is great. eBird is a really good way to look to see what might be in an area. So I'm going to show you it. You can get it on. I did last time. It worked pretty well. So just ebird.com. And on there you can do things like look at hotspots. So Lichterman is a hotspot. Let me see if I can just, yeah. So you can, I have it set to Lichterman Nature Center. So just first comes up there. How many species you see here is 160, 1,000 checklist. And these are the birds that, let's see what we saw the last time we went out. These are the birds that were here on the 14th of January. So if you're going to go somewhere and you are going to do some birding, I definitely recommend look at the eBird for the spot that you're going to and see what birds are in there, and then you have an idea of what birds you're going to be seeing. This was really cool. I was a little jealous. I have not seen a common goldeneye here at the park, but somebody did. This was the first recorded sighting of this bird at this site. So you can see them other places, but this is the first one that are at our site. The other thing you can do if you want more information about a bird, you can just get some general information just by clicking on it. It'll tell you all about it. And what else can you do? You can put your own list in this. That's what I do. So I did a list here on the 12th. And it'll record your track too. This is where I always walk. But you can just look through here and see what birds have recently been found there. And you can keep your own list. You can make them private or public. It's a really good resource, and it keeps all your checklists in the same place too, if you're into that. I also had a written, I don't have all of my birds in eBird because I started birding before eBird was a thing. So I should go back and historically put a bunch of mine in, but I still have an old book that I got when I was, age myself here, when I was in college. I got a checklist of birds. Gosh, it's been 24 years ago, I bet. Okay, so binoculars. Binoculars are a huge help, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. If you're interested in getting them, this will help kind of narrow it down. Two different styles. We've got a roof one and a poro. It's just how the prisms are set inside of these. There used to be a little bit of a difference. I like these because they're a little bit more compact, but they're heavier than these ones. So it's just testing out the different style that you like. I feel like the roof ones just kind of fit better in your hands, but I use these all the time for programming. Now, when you look at binoculars, there's going to be two numbers on the binocular. It's going to be a smaller number, an X, and then a larger number. That first number is how many times what you're seeing is magnified. So if it's a 6, that picture is magnified 6 times, 8, 8 times, 10, 10 times. The second number is the diameter of the lens across here. The bigger the diameter, the more light it can let in, the clearer your view basically is. Now you might say, well, why wouldn't I get like the biggest numbers I can possibly get? There are drawbacks the higher numbers you get. Higher magnifications, you have a lower field of view. So when you look through a binocular, what you're seeing is your field of view. When you get higher in magnification, that field of view, or how much you're seeing, is smaller and smaller. And it can be really hard to find birds that way. The diameter, as the diameter, this gets wider, these get really heavy. And it's hard to hold steady. So when you're looking through them, you'll see your movements. Even though it doesn't seem like you're moving, you'll see a little movement. And most of the time, those ones have to be mounted on something to use. And they're mainly, the bigger the diameter ones are typically used for things like stargazing that need to let in as much possible light, stuff like that. So the ones I recommend for birding are either 8 by 32s or 8 by 42s. Those are right? Perfect for birding. I have a pair of 8s that I use every 8x42s. These are like my everyday ones. I have a pair of 10x42s that I use if I know I'm going to be somewhere where I want to see things a little bit closer, if I'm looking at ducks or warblers way up in the trees. So sometimes I'll switch back and forth. But for birders, especially starting out, these ones are 6.5s. They're a little bit less expensive. But 8s are really kind of the right middle of the line that you want to get for birding. These are 6.5s, and they work fine too. But I like my 8s personally. Okay. Price ranges. So the price can really be anywhere from like a little compact pair for $20 to like over $1,000 for some. Oh, here. So basically, if you get over $100, you're getting into some nicer ones, and as you go up in price, probably to like the $500 range, you'll see differences in the quality of the binoculars. When you get over the $500 range, you are getting into the top tier binoculars, and there are incremental differences where you're going to pay a lot more for all those little differences. Sometimes it's really worth it. I've looked through some really expensive pairs. It's like they cut through the fog, there's like so much light in, it's so clear. So it's really just a personal preference on how much you're willing to spend. My first pair, I was telling somebody this and they couldn't believe it. My first pair when I started was like a $70 pair that were like hand-me-downs from somebody. They're huge diameters, they were like clunky, and I used them for years. And then when I got my nice pair, I was like, I couldn't believe I used those ones. So really, yes.
Where's the best place to look around and start shopping for binoculars locally?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, if you order them, they're going to send it, and then you don't know if you like them sort of done. And it's better if you can sort of.
Yes, I definitely recommend that because you can see the pair that has all like the, diameter and the magnification that you want, but I love using this word. The interpupillary distance, or basically the space in between your eyes, is different in everybody. Some people are really close, and sometimes you can't get, some binoculars don't full down enough to see that well out of. So I definitely recommend trying them out. Around here, you've got Wild Birds Unlimited, usually has a few pairs in stock. You can try some of like the Bass Pro Shops. They a lot of times are more geared towards hunting, which sometimes are higher higher diameter, stuff like that. But they do have a number of pair that you can try out, so you can see what you like, what you don't like. And then, unfortunately, there was an amazing website that I got a lot of my binoculars through the years, but they unfortunately closed down. So there's not a lot of not like a really centralized place to go. But Wild Birds I know has a couple different pairs that you can try out.
But then will they think you're crazy if you want to go outside and look?
No, they're bird people. They know we're crazy. No, but I definitely recommend trying them out. And you can try out some of mine too. I've got a pair of 8x42s and 6.5x32s. Yeah.
This is a strange question, but I've got some. They're little binoculars, but what I'd gotten them for back then was to be able to like sit on the top row and see down. Like if you wanted to see the opera or the ballet or something.
Yeah.
Do those work at all for birding?
I mean, you can use anything.
I don't even know what the diameter or anything.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's probably like a little compact pair, and you're probably like a 5 magnification, and a pretty small diameter. If I'm thinking about the little compact pair, so you can definitely use them. And then the more you get into it, maybe you want to upgrade after that. I wouldn't go out and, if you don't think you're gonna stick with birding, I wouldn't go out and buy like a really expensive pair. I still haven't upgraded to like my final pair in my life because I just don't feel like I can take care of a $1,000 pair of binoculars yet. So I've spilled coffee on mine, and I'm terrible about taking care of them. But that's what I would use them until you feel like you need to upgrade. Other questions?
$1,000, I better be able to look and take pictures.
Yeah,
print it out.
I know.
Do a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It better be like one of those smart glasses that tells me what the bird is. $1,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So
Yeah.
you can wait till the technology advances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish Jim was here. He has a really nice pair.
Do they actually have the ones that really take a picture?
So there are ones out there that do take pictures. I don't know how great they are because I think with adding in that component it makes them heavier, so you lose it somewhere else. I haven't really tried out very many of them. I was just wondering. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I have a telephoto right on my camera. Okay. Is there any reason that I need binoculars in addition to a camera? Because I kind of look at my face.
Yeah. So a lot of the birders in the ornithology club have switched to that now because they take so many photographs. But a lot of times you'll see them with their big lens and then a pair of binoculars as well. But I've seen people that just bird with their cameras. So I think that's really fun. I mean, what's your magnification on that? Yeah. Yeah. So that's really great. The challenge you, yeah, that's exactly it. And the challenge you may have is finding the birds too. Right. Yeah. But I think that's really fun. Yeah. What time is it now? It is almost 2 o'clock. Okay. Yes, I am. Thank you. Okay, so attracting birds, it kind of depends on what you want. What's your outcome? Do you want to? One of the biggest things I can say, and you've seen this on the property too, leave your seed heads through the winter. That's the natural source of food that these birds are going to when they're not going to feeders. We leave them here, and this is a bird that should have been way up in Canada, and it came down here, and it was feeding only on black-eyed Susan seeds. It was so far away from where it should have been. But we talk about kind of creating a habitat instead of just putting feeders up. Think about the other needs of birds: water, shelter, space to raise young, things like nest boxes. The sound of water, birds are attracted to the sound of water, so putting a dripper doesn't have to be fancy. Every year we take a gallon jug, put a little pinhole in it, fill it with water, and it slowly drips out to make that sound the birds are attracted to and prevents the mosquitoes from getting in there as well. Plant sale is a place where you can get some of those bird-friendly plants. April 12th and 13th. Some birds, go through this pretty quick. Canada goose here year-round. Our great blue heron. Adults have this fancy feather here where the immatures or young ones don't. Vultures, two different kinds, turkey vulture and black vulture. Black vulture just has this silver lining because most of the time we're just looking up at them. The black vultures just have this silver lining on the outside, and the turkey vultures lines the whole thing. Red-shouldered hawk, best way to, I just saw one of these this morning on my way into work. And these guys sound like they're saying, Kira, Kira, versus our red-tailed hawk with just that classic, Keer, Keer. So that's a good way to tell them apart, especially because they can be about the same size. Barred owl is our most common owl. Sounds like he's saying, who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. Can be active in the, yep, they can be active in the daytime too. They're kind of opportunists, but it sounds like, and when you get a group of them together, they sound like monkeys. They're like hooting and whooping. Our other one is a great horned owl. They're here year round. They are starting to breed right now. So a lot of our raptors breed early so that their babies are big enough. It's going to sound really bad. Their babies are big enough to eat all the other babies that are coming in the springtime. So they want a couple extra months, so they breed really early in the year. And this one usually comes out later at night, and it sounds like they're saying, who's awake? Me too. So it's a little bit deeper. So it's just simple. This is a hoot owl. Red-bellied woodpecker, common, come to feeders, stuff like that. It sounds like they're saying, whir, whir. Northern flicker, this is you see them on the ground a lot. It's called a yellow, it used to be called a yellow shafted flicker because these feathers here actually have yellow shafts. And if you go out west, it's the same species, but they have red shafts. Downy woodpecker is the most common woodpecker that visits feeders. Pileated, you guys remember Woody Woodpecker in the cartoon? Yeah. Hey, when I teach this to kids, they're like, what? Anyway, one of our it's about the size of a crow. They do nest here, but really, really massive woodpecker. American crow, like I said, we have two of them, American crow, and we have a fish crow. It sounds like a crow with a cold, and especially in the summertime, you'll see So it's a two note, like So here's a joke that you can remember the sound. So you ask a fish crow, "Are you an American crow?" He goes, First time when I first moved to Memphis, I was over near Clark Tower. This is like 10 years ago, and we had just moved from Western Kentucky, so not that far, but we didn't get fish crows up there. But down here, we were over by Clark Tower, and they are on top of Clark Tower. They're like jumping off in the fog, but we hear them on Clark Tower quite a bit. Carolina chickadee says its name. Not a black-capped chickadee. If you look here at the checklist I gave you, it'll say black-capped chickadee too. The only place in Tennessee you can see black-caps is in the higher elevations in the mountains of East Tennessee. So those higher elevations are similar to habitats that are like, say, in Pennsylvania. And so that's why those birds can live further south like that. But you won't find them here. Tufted titmouse, like we talked about, Peter, or Carolina wren says tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle. They will nest anywhere around people. I had one, we were outside we had a deck at the time, had a lawn chair, folded up the lawn chair, went out there the next evening, there was a wren nest in there, a fold up chair, and she raised 4 babies out of that thing. We left it folded up, and she raised 4 babies.
They'll nest in shoes, they'll nest in anything. They nest in the corner of our canopy outside, yeah.
Yeah, they like to be around people. These guys are really cute, though. I have an affinity for wrens. My daughter's name is Wren, and these they'll stay together in a pair year round. Most birds will split up in the wintertime, but these guys will stick together year round. Cedar waxwings, there were hundreds of them here yesterday. If you have any sort of holly tree or tree with a berry on it right now, you'll be seeing these guys. These are actually little droplets of wax on their wings. If they eat a non-native species called Oriental bittersweet, those will turn orange. Every couple years you hear about birds getting drunk. Most of the time it's these ones. What happens if there's a late frost, those berries that are almost ripe can ferment, and the birds eat them and they start acting drunk because they're getting alcohol. Starling, we kind of talked about these, always associated with people. White-throated sparrow, if you learn any bird, learn this one this winter. Dark-eyed junco, same thing, just a winter bird. House finch, these guys are here year-round. Unlike purple finches, which can just get here in the wintertime, but they can look very similar. I recommend looking at the females. This is the house finch on the left. Female purple finch has got an eyebrow stripe, very distinct on those guys. So if you just see that one characteristic, you know you're looking at a purple finch, not a house finch. House sparrow and warblers, these are ones that can get people really excited to get out, but they only look like this in the spring and summer. This is what they look like in the fall. And you're like, what is that bird? So, that's when we really start looking at things like an incomplete eye ring, or no wing bars, but a deeper yellow vent. Really getting into like the details at that point. Yellow rump warbler is a warbler we can get here year round, call them butterbutts, because it looks like a bright pat of butter on their butt. So that's an easy way to remember them. You can also get orange crown warblers. They will come to suet feeders as well. Rarely, you don't always see its orange crown, but what you see is its vent is a slightly brighter color than the rest of its body. Where to go? Check out the Ornithological Society website. They'll list all their field trips. Even if you can't make a field trip, you'll see where they're going and know that that's a really good spot to bird as well. Dress appropriately in layers is always good. The best thing for using binoculars, find the bird with your naked eye first. Bring the binoculars up while you're still looking at the bird so you won't have to search for the bird in a small field of view. It'll also give you a headache really fast. And then recordings, if you're going to use recordings, just remember the ethics of it. When you're playing the song of a bird to attract it out, put it off to the nest, maybe from feeding or attracting mates or something like that. So we use them very limited when looking or trying to get birds out. And that is the end. Yeah, thank you guys. Oh, this is my favorite. I put this on all my bird watching stuff. You need a checklist. Yes.
Well, I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. We had a great time, me and Junior. Got a lot of really good seeds. Now, I will do a separate video talking about the seed haul, and that will post Monday. So much fun. There were several other workshops I missed I wanted to go to, but oh well, you could only do so much. I hope you've had fun being brought along with us on this adventure, and we look forward to going on some more. Everyone, take care, stay safe and sound, continue to stock up on seeds. Also, continue to stock up your food in your pantry, food that will sustain and nourish you, medicines that will heal you, protection of all kinds, as well as the bare essentials, because you're going to need to. Should have been doing it already. Everyone, take care. It's getting colder out here. Y'all stay safe and sound and warm. And above all else, stay positive. You got this. We all got this. Y'all take care. I'll see you soon in my next video. Hoot hoot.